Go ahead.
So you want me to pay you $30 million to play 30 games? Hell no.
Right.
No. 80 games is fine, because I did it, Jerry West did it, Kareem did it, Magic did it, Bird did it, Bernard King, like all the great legends before us did it.
You play basketball 2.5 hours a day, 3 hours a day, right? That's your job. That's what you get paid to do as an NBA player. What are you doing the other 21 hours? I mean, to me, that's when you should be preparing for your next day of work.
An unexpected tremor rattled the foundations of the NBA. A verbal explosion from Shaquille O'Neal that exposed the hollow hustle at the heart of the current basketball landscape. When the dust settled, superstars LeBron James and Kevin Durant were left standing in the wreckage of their own making. They scrambled to laugh off a brutal truth that had just struck them with the force of a freight train. The timing of this collision was almost poetic, as Shaq's call for players to honor their commitments came just as LeBron and KD were on a podcast deriding the very titans who forged the league they now dominate. The entire firestorm ignited from a simple inquiry about load management, the practice of players sitting out games to preserve their bodies. His response was pure, unfiltered, and delivered with the weight of his convictions, scoffing at the idea of a $30 million paycheck for a 30-game effort. With a defiant hell no, decades of pent-up frustration from a bygone era of warriors erupted in a single powerful statement. He then dug deeper, championing the true legends like Jerry West, who battled through injuries that would sideline a modern athlete for half a season. He spoke of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who endured punishing years without the aid of advanced recovery technology or personal chefs. He invoked the names of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, who waged war on the court nightly for salaries that are now dwarfed by those of benchwarmers. He recalled Artis Gilmore's advice that longevity in the league meant abandoning flashy dives, a lesson in grit that he initially mistook for madness. He painted a picture of Bird snatching the ball from Wilkins, hitting the floor, and still making the play a testament to relentless effort. He recounted how a teammate of Michael Jordan's described him playing an entire 82-game season on essentially one leg after getting hurt. Incredibly, despite the injury, Jordan never missed a practice or a game, playing through the pain every single day. When asked why he wouldn't just sit out, Jordan's response was a masterclass in leadership, stating he couldn't lead from the sidelines while his team was in the trenches. He remembered his own experience twisting an ankle and having a veteran teammate, David Greenwood, urge him to rest. The veteran told the young phenom to take a seat, but he refused, driven by an intense desire to prove himself. He knew he couldn't make a name for himself from the bench. He needed to be on the court, showcasing his abilities. He was consumed by the hunger to play to win and to leave his mark on the game, a stark contrast to the modern player's cautious approach to an 82-game season. It was a goal, something to be considered, but the commitment was tentative, a reflection of the new era's mindset. He drew a line in the sand, channeling the spirit of the warriors who constructed the NBA empire. When it was suggested that perhaps the season was too long, his retort was sharp and absolute. The message was clear. If the legends were required to endure it, then the current generation had no excuse. The old guard faced a harsher reality with primitive medical care, grueling travel in cramped conditions, and paychecks that would barely cover a modern player's luxury car. Yet they appeared every night without excuses, without manufactured drama, and without seeking sympathy. His argument was simple: basketball is the job, and the hours off the court should be dedicated to mastering that job. Inevitably, the backlash arrived swiftly, led by the new school of thought. Draymond Green entered the fray, defending the culture of sitting out games as a form of intelligent strategy. Austin Rivers offered a dismissive take, acknowledging that the old-timers played every game, but mockingly suggesting it was the cause of their physical ailments today. This became the prevailing excuse that avoiding the court was a form of self-preservation for the hyper-wealthy athlete. This was the mentality that enraged Shaq, a pity party for millionaires who framed their immense privilege as a burden. He found it infuriating that players earning $50 million a year would act as if playing basketball was a hardship, while fans emptied their pockets just to see them. He drew a stark comparison, saying he could understand needing a day off from a coal mine, but not from a basketball court. Even Nikola Jokic seemed to inadvertently prove Shaq's point, equivocating when asked about mandatory game participation. He acknowledged the league's desire to compel players to play, but trailed off his uncertainty, speaking volumes. His hesitant words suggested a reluctance to commit, fully revealing the mindset Shaq was targeting. His comments were a quiet admission that he preferred to play only when he was in the mood. This was the very core of Shaq's critique, a burgeoning sense of entitlement among the league's new elite. A generation of players was amassing wealth that could fund small nations. Yet they lamented the supposed burden of playing too much basketball. With the average NBA salary cresting $10 million and maximum contracts approaching $60 million, the complaints rang hollow. Fans pack arenas eager to witness greatness, only to discover their idols are benched in perfect health. It's the ultimate bait and switch, like buying front row tickets to a rock show just to hear the lead singer is feeling a bit tired. But this story goes deeper than just one night. It ignites into a firestorm precisely as Shaq is speaking this uncomfortable truth, while LeBron James hosts his Mind the Game podcast with superstars Kevin Durant and Steve Nash. And their topic of choice: throwing shade at the one and only Michael Jordan. Durant kicks it off, reflecting on how challenging it is to maintain drive after a decade of dominance. You're 10-12 years into a legendary career. You've already collected 4 MVP trophies and 4 championship rings. But does the fire still burn? Some guys, he notes, say, "I think I'll go play baseball for a while and then come back." Others decide, "I'm going for 22 straight seasons." And as this is said, the camera catches LeBron's face. That smirk, the dismissive chuckle. The disrespect was blatant. They were framing Jordan's baseball sabbatical as a weakness against LeBron's marathon career, implying that staying power trumps peak dominance, a thinly veiled insult disguised as a friendly chat. Then LeBron delivers the line that exposes everything. At the end of the day, it's just basketball. Just basketball. After everything the legends before him built. That single phrase captures the entire generational divide. The old guard fought as if the game was their very soul, while the new era seems to treat it like a lucrative side gig. The chasm has never been wider. And Shaq's comments didn't just spark a debate, they ignited a rebellion. It's just basketball. Consider the sheer audacity of that statement. This comes from a man who leveraged the sport into a billion-dollar empire, who transformed himself from a kid in Akron into a global icon. Basketball was the engine for it all. And now he casually dismisses it as if it were a pickup game at the park. Unbelievable. Michael Jordan would have never uttered those words. When MJ spoke about the game, you could feel the raw intensity in his very being. He famously said he gave 110% every single night because it was more than a profession or a brand to him. It was his entire identity. The sport was his driving obsession, his sanctuary, his reason for being. Every single possession, every shot, every moment on the court was a battle for him. But you have to truly compete with everything you have. Does that take a physical toll? No, because my effort is always at its peak. You know, there's no switch to turn it on here or off there. It is simply 110% at all times to have a long career. That is the objective, to be in the league for 20 years. I took that as the objective. You know, it's all about securing championships and winning. And at the end of the day, it's just basketball. It's just basketball. But LeBron wasn't finished. He took direct aim at Jordan's on-court legacy. He boldly claimed the legendary triangle offense was obsolete and wouldn't stand a chance in today's supposedly advanced game. In essence, he was declaring his generation to be superior, smarter, stronger, and more evolved. What he's implying is that modern players contend with more difficult challenges, more sophisticated strategies, and superior athletes. But that isn't a sign of respect. It's an attempt to rewrite history. Then, the most revealing moment arrived. LeBron began to question why championships are even considered the ultimate measure of success, asking, "I don't know why it's discussed so much in our sport and why it's the be-all and end-all of everything." Seriously, this is the same man who orchestrated super teams specifically to chase championships. He fled to Miami to team up with Wade and Bosh, lured stars to Cleveland, and then bolted for Los Angeles when the going got tough. And now that Jordan's 6 rings are mathematically out of reach, he suddenly wants to redefine the very definition of greatness. The motive is transparent. He is desperately trying to change the scoreboard after the game has been played. When you can't match the numbers, you change the story. That is his exact strategy. He's twisting the GOAT debate away from pure dominance and toward a discussion of longevity, valuing sustained presence over the relentless pursuit of victory. Okay. Laker Nerd wants to know, why isn't the triangle offense seen more in the modern game? Attempting to execute the triangle offense today would be, incredibly difficult, Simply because of the evolution of the game and how defenses are now structured. 10 on the shot clock. Jake drives straight to the basket. A total breakdown in defensive communication. You play the game for 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours a day, correct? That's your occupation. That is what you are paid to do as a professional basketball player. So what occupies the other 21 hours? To me, that time should be spent preparing for your next shift at work. Why does ring culture seem so much more intense in the NBA compared to other professional sports? Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know why it's such a focal point in our league and why it is considered the ultimate standard. Like you briefly mentioned something about the current state of the game because we had Clever on and he brought up load management. He said, I have no earthly idea what that is. Where is this trend headed? And that's the first problem. And the second is, how do we restore the old standard? Even I, a devoted fan of the NBA, will tune into a game only to find that the marquee players are sitting out due to load management. It's damaging the sport. Larry Bird once shared a story that perfectly illustrates the stark contrast between the two eras. Artis Gilmore advised him, if you want a long career in this league, you need to stop diving on the floor for every loose ball. Bird stared at him as if he were insane, because in Bird's mind, that was the essence of basketball. Fighting for every single possession, pushing your body until it completely failed you. Bird understood a fundamental truth that seems lost on LeBron and Durant. The point of the game isn't to pace yourself so you can make it to year 20. It's about leaving every ounce of your being on the court every single night. That is why Bird's body only held up for 13 seasons. It's why Jordan only played 13 full campaigns. These legends didn't coast to the finish line, they went out in a blaze of glory. They battled through injuries and sacrificed their bodies for championships, not for personal brands. But now you have LeBron James already planting seeds for taking more games off. When a reporter asked if playing 82 games was still on the table, he answered, "That's a goal, but we'll see." The real meaning, get ready for more DNP rest. He's setting the stage now so that nobody bats an eye when he starts sitting out. Michael Jordan, however, operated on a completely different level. He had a simple philosophy. Basketball is your job for 3 hours a day. The question is, what are you doing with the other 21 hours? That reveals the fundamental gap in mindset. Jordan knew something that today's stars seem unable to comprehend. A spot in the NBA isn't a chore, it's an honor. You're handed millions to play a game that fans would give anything just to see up close. The bare minimum is to lace up and play. And MJ embodied that code. He said he was always playing for the fan in the cheap seats, the one who probably scraped together money he couldn't afford just for a single ticket. He even drew energy from the fans who despised him. When asked if the hecklers got to him, he admitted, "Absolutely. I know he's probably screaming at me. I want to make him eat his words with my play." That's called pride. That's raw passion. Even the next wave of talent guys like Tracy McGrady understood this. He famously said he would never consider load management when superstars like Kobe AI Paul Pierce or Vince Carter were coming to his arena. McGrady understood that ducking those matchups would be a profound sign of disrespect to the sport, to the paying fans, and to himself. It's that deep reverence for the fight that has vanished from the modern game. And then there's the one thing Durant and LeBron pray you forget that snide remark about baseball. When Kevin Durant smirked and said, "Some people go play baseball," he wasn't just taking a cheap shot. He was making a mockery of one of the most heartbreaking sagas in the history of sports. Michael Jordan didn't leave the game because he got tired of it. His father was murdered on July 23, 1993. James Jordan pulled over to rest his eyes at a highway rest stop, and two young men shot him, stole his car, and dumped his body in a swamp. The man who was MJ's rock, his biggest believer who saw him climb to the absolute summit, was brutally stolen from him. So what was Michael's response? He walked away from basketball to fulfill his late father's dream that his son might one day become a professional baseball player. Just think about that. At the absolute apex of his dominance, right after securing his third consecutive championship, he gave it all up, not for more fame, and not for a bigger paycheck, but for love and for grief. So when Durant sneers about some people playing baseball, while LeBron chuckles beside him, it's not just a joke. It's a flagrant dismissal of one of the most vulnerable and profoundly human moments an athlete has ever shared with the world. And don't ever forget, Jordan didn't hang it up after a failure. He didn't retire after choking in a big moment or getting swept out of the playoffs. He left as the undisputed king. He had just completed a three-peat feat that legends like Magic Bird and Isaiah Thomas never accomplished. He walked away as a champion, while still shattered by his father's death, still shouldering that immense burden, and still pouring every last drop of his being into the game his dad adored. That is the chasm that separates Michael Jordan from all the rest. He didn't just play the game, he breathed it. He bled for it, and he honored it. While today's stars chase statistics and carefully craft their legacies, Jordan was playing for something far more real. The hypocrisy is staggering, almost poetic. The very players taking shots at Michael Jordan are guilty of the very things he never was. Let's begin with Kevin Durant, the architect of what is widely considered the weakest move by a superstar in NBA history. Back in 2016, after his Oklahoma City Thunder were eliminated by the Golden State Warriors, what was KD's next move? He went and signed with them. He joined the historic 73-win machine that had just sent him home. It was the ultimate if you can't beat 'em, join 'em move. This was a team that already featured Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, three All-Stars who needed no saving. Fans everywhere branded it a cowardly act. And frankly, that's a tough argument to refute. But his journey didn't end there. As soon as things got difficult in Brooklyn, Durant hit the eject button again, forcing trades, shirking responsibility, and jetting off to Phoenix. Every single time the pressure mounted, he vanished. And yet, this is the man taking aim at Michael Jordan's toughness. It's laughable. Then you have LeBron James. His entire career is practically a roadmap of convenient departures. When the Boston Celtics were his roadblock in Cleveland, what was his solution? He bolted, famously announcing he was taking his talents to South Beach. He didn't stick around to build a contender from the ground up. He just went and created a super team with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Then when Miami's championship window slammed shut in 2014, did he stay to grind through the tough times? Of course not. He fled back to Cleveland, leaving Pat Riley to pick up the pieces. And the moment that situation in Cleveland began to fracture, he was gone again, this time decamping for Los Angeles. Faced with any real adversity, he looked for the nearest exit. After any difficult season, he was looking at new real estate. This is a superstar who doesn't rebuild. He relocates. And these are the two figures ridiculing the sacrifices Michael Jordan made. The level of disrespect is off the charts. Charles Barkley, as always, cut right through the nonsense with his classic brutal honesty. These players hide behind analytics departments and their agents. What they are actually doing is attempting to prolong their careers. To put it bluntly, they are chasing paychecks, not a timeless legacy. If they can manage to stretch out their careers for a couple of extra seasons, that's another $500 million in their bank accounts. That is the modern game they are playing. But Jordan, he never played for longevity. He played for absolute supremacy. Every single season, every single game, his one and only objective was to achieve perfection, to own every square inch of that court, and to leave knowing he had given more than anyone else possibly could. He wasn't just coasting to year 20. He was on a nightly mission to prove he was the greatest player on the court. Let's place the legacies side by side. Jordan's career spanned 15 seasons, but really it was 13 complete campaigns if you factor in his retirements. In that short window, he captured 6 championships, earned 6 finals MVPs, 5 regular season MVPs, and an incredible 10 scoring titles. He also secured 9 selections to the All-Defensive First Team. This wasn't just domination. It was a sustained state of absolute perfection. He couldn't fathom an NBA player earning $1 million. Now, these modern athletes are incredibly fortunate, yet they struggle to play basketball 3 or 4 times a week. And he knows they take cover behind the analytics fed to them by their agents and handlers. The real objective is to prolong their careers. With the way salaries are skyrocketing, you could secure another $50 to $100 million, and likely even more in the future, just by extending your playing days by 2 or 3 years. Now stack that against the combined careers of LeBron and Durant, which is nearly 40 seasons. 4 decades of basketball between them yielded a combined total of 6 championships, 5 MVPs, 6 finals MVPs, and only 5 scoring titles. And between the two of them, a mere 5 all-defensive first-team nods. So with nearly triple the time on the court, their combined achievements still fell short of what Jordan accomplished in just over a decade. They played twice the number of years for half the level of dominance. Imagine this: in October of 2025, Michael Jordan appears on NBC's Insights to Excellence and is asked about load management. His answer: the unvarnished truth. He said it's unnecessary. His first principle was to never miss a game because the fans had sacrificed to buy those tickets. He felt a duty to perform for the person in the nosebleed seats who might have spent money they didn't really have. That's the definition of heart. Jordan valued every person in that building, including those who were screaming against him. He famously said, "I hear him yelling at me. I want to make him quiet." He didn't see detractors as distractions. He saw them as fuel for his fire. He feasted on their doubt. He then recalled the iconic flu game of 1997 Game 5 of the NBA Finals against the Utah Jazz. Jordan was debilitatingly sick, racked with fever and chills, barely able to stay upright. He missed warm-ups completely, only to come out and score a staggering 38 points, leading Chicago to a victory. The moment the final buzzer sounded, he collapsed into Scottie Pippen's arms, utterly spent. That wasn't just a basketball game. It was the physical manifestation of pure willpower. When questioned about why he pushed through, Jordan explained, "I was determined to find a way to be out there, even if I was just a decoy. Once you start competing, anything can happen." The gravity of the moment, the intense emotions, and the team's desperation, all of it gave him the strength to persevere. That is the genetic makeup of a true champion. Jordan played all 82 games on 6 separate occasions and appeared in at least 80 games in 9 different seasons. The only exceptions were when he shattered his foot when he made a mid-season comeback and during his final run in Washington. In stark contrast, today's superstars boast about playing 60 games as if it's a monumental achievement. The situation grew so dire that the NBA had to intervene with a new regulation. Players now need to participate in a minimum of 65 games to be eligible for major awards like MVP or All-NBA honors. Just think about that. The league had to create a rule just to get grown men to show up for their jobs. It was a public admission of a problem fans had seen for years. The quality of the game declines when its biggest stars refuse to play. But Michael Jordan would never have needed a rule book to tell him to compete. He didn't simply play the sport of basketball. He lived and breathed it, pouring his heart and soul into it. That is the fundamental difference that separates a true legend from a commercial brand. Players today continue to sit out games, piling up excuses and behaving as if their participation is merely optional. As a result, the chasm between the two generations has never been wider. Jordan's era was defined by a belief in honoring the game and respecting the fans who made their careers possible. They were committed to leaving everything on the court every single night, regardless of the pain, the exhausting travel, or the immense pressure. The stars of today, however, prioritize body preservation and career longevity to maximize their financial earnings. The love for the game has been replaced by the need to protect the brand. Sure, modern science promotes rest for recovery. And yes, the athletes of today are bigger, stronger, and faster. But don't mistake that for the game being tougher. Jordan's generation endured genuine physical punishment. Hand-checking sharp elbows and flagrant fouls were the norm. Every night, they were thrown to the hardwood, only to wipe away the blood, get back on their feet, and dive right back into the fray. Meanwhile, current players have access to private chefs, advanced recovery chambers, and personal masseuses. Yet they still complain that the grind is overwhelming. It's unbelievable. Shaq's generation built the modern league from the ground up, brick by painful brick. They transformed basketball into a worldwide phenomenon. They battled for increased salaries, improved travel conditions, and better overall treatment. And now the new generation of players is reaping the benefits of that legacy, cashing enormous checks while acting as if the work is beneath them. They possess every conceivable advantage, yet somehow they complain more than ever before. But here is the most damning fact. Extensive studies have shown that load management is ineffective. The NBA's own internal research discovered no correlation between sitting out games and a reduction in injuries. So what's the real reason they continue the practice? It's straightforward. It's not driven by science, but by a desire for comfort. It's about avoiding the night-in, night-out grind of competition. That is precisely what Shaq was calling out, a mentality of softness masquerading as a clever strategic approach. So yes, Shaquille O'Neal just took LeBron James and Kevin Durant to task. His criticism wasn't just about them missing games, it was about them personifying a deep-seated issue within the modern game. He issued a powerful reminder to the world of what genuine legends represented and what true competitors were made of guys like Shaq, Jordan, Bird, and Magic.